The Castle of Montjuïc, the eyes that watch all routes leading to Barcelona by land and by sea. An exceptional lookout point with a long history linked to the city, a history marked by war, tragedy, and legend. The Castle of Montjuïc, an exceptional lookout point. According to folklorist Joan Amades, legend has it that the origins of Barcelona are linked to Greek mythology. Hercules arrived on the Catalan coast while looking for the 9th lost boat of his expedition. He climbed to the top of the highest point and contemplated the surrounding landscape of rolling hills covered with pine and oak trees, budding along an impressive coastal mountain chain. From the top of Montjuïc, one can contemplate the whole city, its unique architecture, its colors, and the symbols of its history. It's also possible to see the profile of the cathedral on a small hill where the first urban settlement of Barcelona was born, the Roman Barquino. Montjuïc is one of the largest urban parks in Barcelona. It has been developed over the last 2 centuries and today is host to a variety of cultural centers. We find the National Museum of Art of Catalonia, the Miró Foundation, the Olympic Stadium, site of the 1992 Olympic Games, the Magic Fountain of Carles Buigas, theaters, the Cemetery of Montjuïc, the Botanical Garden, and La Font del Gat, a grand meeting place that was made popular through the 19th century by its Sunday dances. The mountain of Montjuïc is present in the whole iconography of the city. Its image is that of a cliff that arose from the sea millions of years ago. The name Montjuïc comes surely from a former 19th century cemetery known as Montjovis, which means the Hill of the Jews in medieval Catalan. Crowning the mountain today at almost 192 meters is the Castle of Montjuïc, built during the 18th century. But the history of the castle begins in the Middle Ages. In the 11th century, there already existed a lighthouse or a watchtower at the top of the hill, and in 1640 the first military fortress was built. Its purpose was twofold: to send signals with fire or with candles to ships that were approaching the coast, and to communicate to the city the presence of those ships, be they friend or foe. Thanks to its strategic location, the purpose of the military fortress in the year 1640 was to defend the city. This primitive squared fortress allowed Barcelona to defend himself from the Castilian troops in the Battle of Montjuïc of January 26, 1641. On September 11, 1714, during the War of Succession to the Spanish throne, the city of Barcelona and the Montjuïc fortress fell into the hands of the Borbonic troops after an entire year of siege. Thus began a tumultuous period for the castle and for the city. In the year 1751, the military engineer Juan Martín Cermeño demolished the former fortress of 1640 and designed the castle that we know today. He dug the moat, built the fortifications and bastions, and provided the castle with cisterns of drinkable water and everything necessary to support 3,000 soldiers and approximately 120 cannons. This construction, dating back to the 18th century, is the one that we see today. During the 19th century, the century of industrialization and the workers' movement, the military command of the castle ordered several bombardments of Barcelona. In 1842, no less than 1,014 projectiles rained down on Barcelona for some 12 hours to suppress a civil insurrection by the Republican movement. Throughout that century, as Barcelona outgrew its medieval walls, the military fortress of Montjuïc led violent attacks against the city to repress strikes, riots, and protests. It became a site for imprisonments, court-martials, torture, and executions. That is how the dark legend of the castle began. The castle, whose mission it was to protect the city, became its repressor. In the summer of 1909, a general strike brought the entire city of Barcelona to a standstill. The stifling military repression of the anarchist unions provoked strong revolts in the city, including the burning of churches. There were 2,000 arrests and 17 death sentences. These confrontations between the army and civilians are known as the Tragic Week of Barcelona. One of the condemned was Francesc Ferrer i Guàrdia, educator and creator of the modern school, an innovative project of libertarian pedagogy. He was judged in the Castle of Montjuïc and, despite international protests, was shot on the 13th of October, 1909. In 1931, the proclamation of the Second Republic led to the recovery of dramatic institutions, such as the autonomous government of Catalonia, La Generalitat. In the year 1936, the president of the Generalitat, Lluís Companys, raised a Catalan flag over the Castle of Montjuïc, signifying the return of control over the fortress by a democratic institution. Between 1936 and 1939, during the Spanish Civil War, the castle was again used as a prison, firstly to judge those responsible for the fascist uprising of 1936, and later, at the end of the war, hundreds of Republican prisoners were tried and executed in the castle. The president of the Republican Generalitat, Lluís Companys, was arrested in France, where he was exiled by the German army in 1940. He was then deported to Spain and brought to the Castle of Montjuïc to be submitted to a drumhead court-martial. Lluís Companys, the president that had raised the flag over the castle, was condemned to death by a military court and executed on the morning of October 15, 1940. A monolith in the moat of Santa Eulàlia, dedicated to his memory, reminds people today of the only European president who was democratically elected and then killed by a fascist regime. In 1960, the Castle of Montjuïc was handed over to the city of Barcelona, along with a military detachment and a military museum. After the death of the dictator Franco in the year 1975 and the return of democracy to Spain, Catalan society started to debate the question of historical memory and the recovery of the Castle of Montjuïc as part of its cultural heritage. In 1992, Barcelona hosted the Olympic Games. The stadium bears the name of the president Lluís Companys, and a little further away, a monument was built in honor of the creator of the modern school, Francesc Ferrer i Guàrdia. Companys and Ferrer i Guàrdia, the two best-known personalities executed at the castle. On October 15, 2011, the Catalan flag that President Lluís Companys had raised in the year 1936 was flown again, in honor of all those who were imprisoned and executed at the castle. A new citizen space for culture and historical memory was born. Thus, the dark legend of the castle came to an end. The legend says that Hercules climbed to the top of the first hill that he found on the Mediterranean coast while looking for a lost boat from his expedition. That hill was Montjuïc, and the plain of oaks and pines that he saw below him was the coastal plain covered today by the city of Barcelona. Today, the castle is once again an extraordinary lookout point over the city and its history.